guys, welcome to today's video. So I'm taking you guys back in time essentially. I've been recording my life for well over 3 to 5 years at this point. So what you're gonna see, because it's very special to my heart and I want a place to share it with you guys and also just to have it captured for many years to come. So today I'm gonna take you guys through the wedding venues that we toured when we were shopping for our wedding. So the only two that I unfortunately have recorded is one that is called the Hawkinsmith Barn, which is in Louisville, Kentucky, kind of in like the Middletown area, or what is it, Broad Run Park, I believe, in the Parklands. So they actually have two places. They have the barn, which is great. However, at the time we were gonna have potentially over or close to 250 to 300 guests. So granted, all of those were my parents' friends, so more than likely they weren't gonna show up, but in case we needed it, we needed a place that was big enough. And I believe the Hawkinsmith Barn holds 250. And the other issue is if it was to rain, that there's no place to go as far as the ceremony, unless you wanted to just crowd everybody in amongst all the banquet tables as well, which we didn't want to do. So what we decided to do, even though I absolutely loved the property, I really in my heart wanted to get married outside in a dream world. If it was possible, we had an hour drive radius from Louisville when we were planning. And the other issue was, well, not really an issue, but the other condition was it had to be handicap accessible. I have family members that rely on wheelchairs and other adaptive equipment, and so we needed to make sure they could be there because they're very special to me and my family. And we definitely didn't want them to miss it over something like handicap accessibility. So the Hawkinsmith Barn is handicap accessible. It's great. The only issue was a rain contingency plan. So we scrapped that one. However, if you have a smaller guest count, it would be lovely. Especially I saw people that would put curtains down the middle, kind of that way you have a barn split in half. So one side was their reception and then one side was their banquet side, or ceremony and reception side. So you didn't have to really worry about having to move everything while people are at cocktail hour. The other really nice thing that I loved about the Hawkinsmith Barn was all the grounds. So you kind of had this little courtyard area that had stones and seating and benches and could have little tall cocktail tables for people to have drinks at or just hang out and talk while you're off getting your pictures taken. And then they also had this huge field that some people do a giant marquee tent on, which is great, but for a tent of that size, it was gonna be several $1,000s. But if that's what you're going for, it's great. I recommend it. You do what you want. But for us, it just wasn't the smartest decision. And I also was wanting more of an upscale barn, if that makes sense. Ideally, I would have loved like a European estate kind of vibe with a huge, expansive garden to go through. I would love for that to be something closer to Louisville, or something I can create one day. We shall see. However, not a thing, or at least not in my budget anyways, and not that I saw either. So the other option that we went to was the Refinery, which is technically not a Kentucky venue. We call it Kentuckiana because it's in Jeffersonville, Indiana, which is literally a 20-minute drive across from where my house is personally, but it's basically right across the bridge from downtown Louisville. So it's a great venue option if you kind of have family on both sides of the river. This one is drop dead gorgeous. My only complaint, and this is a very trivial complaint, is that where the little courtyard is between the venue is set up into two sides. So you have one side that has a terrace up top and then a lower section that has the waterfall. And then the other side is just a grand open room. And in between the two buildings, which can be rented out separately for weddings. So potentially there could be 2 weddings going on at the same time in this venue. Just not something me and my fiance wanted, so that was a different discussion. But there's a courtyard in between the two, which is where we were going to have our ceremony and ultimately did have our ceremony. But the thing is with the courtyard is that the back side of it, where the gate is to enter and where you would be walking down from, is unfortunately right against a highway or a major road. Granted, during the time that we got married, it was not COVID anymore, but it was still kind of the after effects of COVID. So thankfully it wasn't busy, but that road can be incredibly busy if there is another concert or any other kind of major event going on in Louisville, since it is right next to the Center. And even on our wedding day, there definitely were cars, and everyone's like, you won't notice at all. But when you're waiting to go down or walk down the altar and just waiting other places, there's a lot of waiting. At least in my experience, there's a lot of waiting on your wedding day around just to get things taken care of. But regardless, you see the cars, you hear the cars, and then while you're inside the reception venue on, I believe it's the north side, I could be wrong, but the side that's more expansive, that doesn't have the upper level terrace, there are windows that also face that street, which you don't really notice until there's a bunch of car taillights. Again, that's just something to keep in mind. Overall, it is a beautiful venue. I absolutely loved it. That is where we had our wedding. And thankfully at the time, since we had booked it so far in advance and with all of the COVID things going on, I believe we got it at an extremely discounted rate compared to what it is now. So I'm not sure if it's feasible for most people anymore, or even, honestly, it was kind of a stretch for us to do it as well, but I'm not sure if it's feasible for most people to have the whole venue to themselves. If you can swing it though, I would absolutely recommend it. It is so nice to have a getting ready area built in, as well as a cocktail hour, a place for cocktail hour, and then reception and ceremony. And then for us, if it was to rain, and it did in fact sprinkle and pour the day before and a little bit on our wedding morning, which I'm so thankful it didn't rain during the afternoon when we were having the wedding outside. But if it was to rain like it did, then there is a rain contingency plan kind of built in, so that way if you're having cocktail hour on one side, you could in theory just have the cocktail tables pulled out after the fact and use that as your ceremony section as well. So those are just things to keep in mind, but without further ado, I'm going to show you guys our wedding venue tours. There are a few others that we saw, however, I just didn't record them at the time, especially because the Hawkinsmith Barn is one that we kind of looked at before we even were engaged. We knew that we were going to get engaged, and we were walking through one day and they had availability to go check it out with it set up a little bit for a wedding, and so we did. But the Refinery is the only wedding venue that we really sought out during our wedding planning period, as you will call it. And so that is the only wedding venue that we actually purposely toured. And obviously we fell in love with it, and if you have your wedding there, I would love to see pictures. But without further ado, as I was trying to say, here are the clips from our wedding venue tours. Hello. So did I win? I feel like I would probably put it like right towards those trees. That way I don't have that yellow barn or silo in my pictures. Yeah. Because not my fave, but gonna fall off. The worst thing that happens is my phone breaks. Huh? Too many lanterns? I mean, if we need to reduce, we can.
Yeah. So, totally open catering policy as long as they're licensed and insured. Same with your bar service. We provide your alcohol. Bar service is licensed and insured in the state.
I wish I had my actual camera. We're not in it just yet. You're a nut job. Because if for some reason we do the whole thing, you could get ready here. Did you go in the other bathrooms?
Yes. Like the bathroom situation's not better. I like the bridal suite because we have so many people
Yeah.
in.
I appreciate it.
Like what? Having an opinion?
Well, like getting ready and not having to leave the area is super nice. One bad thing about iPhone videos is they're so shaky.
I love it.
This is so nice to get ready.
Yeah, look, you even have like a full body mirror.
You have two of them. This one right here
Yeah, I
too.
know.
I'm sure people have done like hanging dress pictures off the giant.
Oh, yeah. And like your guys' bathroom is literally just right here. Which is really nice.
I mean, it's nice for like the getting ready suite, but otherwise it's not as nice as having like the pretty beams and
I agree.
all of that.